I am.
A lot of people just are keen and they're more like popcorn.
Yeah,
So it's rare, much warmer. Has that incredible, it's like they automatically
so my daughter told me about it. My dad loved this thing, but he stuck out on issues. I know.
it be the reed flute that calls us to mindfulness this morning?
Good morning. Welcome to the First Religious Society in Newburyport, Massachusetts. My name is Steve Costello, and I have the pleasure of being your worship associate today. If you are joining us for the first time, a special welcome to you. We're very glad that you're here. We come together at FRS online and in person, committed to love, peace, and justice. Our mission and our invitation to all of you is to come as you are, journey together in love, act with courage, transform our world. If you're worshiping online and would like to access this morning's order of service, please click on the link just below the live stream. I'd like to draw your attention to the many activities and events happening here at the church listed in your order of service. This week, I'd like to highlight our ongoing food drive and personal care items led by the FRS Community Outreach Group. All items are intended to support the Newbury Food Bank, which serves nearly 500 guests every week. There are only 2 more weeks left in the drive, so please consider making a donation. There's more information about the desired items for the drive located in your order of service. Thank you. It's good to be together.
Most spiritual traditions honor ancestors. Jalaluddin Rumi, whose poetry has a special place in today's service, certainly honored Muhammad as a prophet and as a spiritual mentor. Let Muhammad's prayer of light call us to worship today. O God, grant me light in my heart, light in my grave, light in front of me, light behind me, light to my right, light to my left, light above me, light below me, light in my ears, light in my eyes, light on my skin, light in my hair, light within my flesh, light in my blood, light in my bones. O God, increase my light everywhere. O God, grant me light in my heart, light on my tongue, light in my eyes, light in my ears, light to my right, light to my left, light above me, light below me, light in front of me, light behind me, and light within myself. Increase my light.
Please join
and sang our chalice lighting words as Janet lights the chalice. The words can be found in the order of service. We gather this hour as people of faith with joys and sorrows and gifts and needs. We light this beacon of hope, sign of our quest for truth and meaning, in celebration of our life of faith.
Each week we also light 2 candles of peace, representing 2 places on earth we lift up and remember as a sacred reminder of our encounter with the world. There are an untold number of places on earth that need peace. These 2 we hold especially close in this service and throughout the week ahead. After each candle is lit, I will invite you to respond saying, "Peace, Sul, Shalom." Our first candle is lit for the area of northwestern Syria affected by last week's earthquake. The people there, after enduring years of war, have been unable to receive the kind of outside aid with their basic needs and with search and rescue, which have arrived for people on the other side of the Turkish border. We pray for all in need there and for the international community that we may do better in the future. To this we respond, "Peace, Sul, Shalom." Our second candle is lit for the people of Amesbury, especially students, teachers, administrators, and parents who were affected by Monday's school lockdown, evidently resulting from a swatting or false alarm phone call. Our prayers are of thanks that no violence occurred, but of concern that such calls, of which there were several more that day and since, are ever made. We also pray that someday very real calls about real violence will be so rare that we will be surprised when we hear them. And since I put together those words on Thursday, we've heard of the latest real alarm: 6 people murdered in Arcabutla, Mississippi. We pray for all those affected by this loss. To this we respond, "Peace, Sul, Shalom." Please rise in body or in spirit and join in singing our opening hymn, number 271, "Come Down, O Love Divine." Please remain standing as we join our voices in the affirmation of faith, followed by the doxology. The words can be found in your order of service. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest of truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve humankind in fellowship, to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with the divine. Thus do we covenant with each other and with God. May be seated. Now let us sing hymn 413, Go Now in Peace, as Mara and the children head downstairs to Young Church.
The generosity of our community is an essential ministry that supports the work of the church both in Newburyport and beyond. Each week, 50% of the Sunday offering not designated as a pledge goes to a local community partner engaged in important efforts to transform our region. The February shared collection goes to support the Mass Coalition to Prevent Gun Violence. The Massachusetts Coalition to Prevent Gun Violence brings together over 90 organizations across the state, including the First Religious Society, to end the epidemic of gun violence by advocating for improved policies around gun safety and by partnering with community organizations working to end violence in their neighborhoods. In order to give online, please use the link in your order of service or below the live stream. You can also make a contribution by text, and of course, you can always mail a check to the church as well. Thank you. The offering will now be gratefully received.
Each week, we lift up the joys and sorrows of our beloved faith community. Nancy Kidd, our pastoral care associate, will light candles as I read what has been shared with me in advance of today's service. If you would like to share a joy or sorrow to be read in the service, you can always send an email to betweenus@frssuu.org or write in the book located in the vestibule. This morning, we've only received one specific request, and it's one that really struck me, I'm sure, as it will so many of you. It is with great sorrow and honor that we share the news of Meryl Maleska Wilbur's passing. Meryl died peacefully at 12 p.m. last night. We should say 12 a.m., I'm sorry, 12 midnight. Arrangements for her service are in process and details will follow. But it will be held here, and Reverend Rebecca will be officiating. Please hold Meryl's husband, Nathan, son, Liam, and other family in your loving care and thoughts. And just to be less formal about it, I'm sure many of you, like me, remember the two of them sitting right here Sunday after Sunday. We do miss them, and we will. We light one final candle, representing all those joys and sorrows which, though unsaid, are held in just as much love and care. Please join me in a time of meditation. I'll invite you in with some words. We'll sit in silence for a while, and then I'll close this time with some verses of Rumi. Please make yourself comfortable. Feel free to close your eyes. I invite you to recall a time when you were with another person and something unexpected seemed to be happening. Perhaps the connection between you was unusually strong, or something beyond the two of you seemed present, joining you, surrounding you, or somehow just there. Maybe you were with a group of people and you became aware gradually or all of a sudden that something bigger, deeper, different was happening among you. Maybe an out-of-the-ordinary energy seemed present in the room, or a deep silence fell. For you, the occasion may have involved not another person or a group, but a beloved pet, a bald eagle, the ocean or sky, and then something beyond the obvious entered in. Remember how that felt, especially how it felt in your body. Now let yourself re-enter that experience. Even if you haven't been able to recall such an experience, let your imagination create it. You are there with your eyes and ears, with all your senses, with your heart, with everything that made up that experience for you. You are in it there and then, but also in the here and now, our here and now, as we sit in the silence together. This that we have now is not imagination. This is not grief or joy, not a judging state or an elation or a sadness. Those come and go. This is the presence that doesn't. What else could human beings want? When grapes turn to wine, they're wanting this. When the night sky pours by, it's really a crowd of beggars, and they all want some of this. This that we are now created the body, cell by cell, like bees building a honeycomb. The human body and the universe grew from this, not this, from the universe and the human body.
Today's reading are selected verses from Jalaluddin Rumi. Rumi has these verses spoken by the ney, a Turkish flute made from a reed. The first is the Song of the Reed. Listen how this reed flute complains. It tells the tale of separations. Since they have cut me from the reed bed, men and women have lamented in my cry. I won a breast torn by separation, so that I may relate the explanation of yearning's pain. Anyone who remains far from his root searches again for the days of his union.
Another poem by Rumi, Come to the root of yourself. Don't go away, come near. Come to the root of yourself. Molded of clay, yet kneaded from the substance of certainty, a guard at the treasury of holy light. Come, return to the root of yourself. You are born from the children of God's creation, but you have fixed your sight too low. How can you be happy? Come, return to the root of yourself. Although you are a talisman protecting the treasure, you are also the mine. Open your hidden eyes and come to the root of yourself. You were born from a ray of God's majesty. Come, return to the root of yourself. You are a ruby embedded in granite. How long will you pretend it isn't true? We can see it in your eyes. Come to the root of yourself. There is more to grief, as there is to love, than meets the eye. Yes, grief's roots reach to the depths of us, just as love touches our core. Each love carries echoes of previous loves, and any love of another implicates and impacts our sense of self. Every new grief resounds of previous losses, and no grief fails to leave its mark on who we know ourselves to be. Both grief and love must be spoken of, yet neither can be encompassed by words, nor even by thought. Two great mysteries are these, and often intertwined. Mysteries that, beyond words, speak of who we are. Grief is our February theme here at the First Religious Society. I'm leaving it to others to explore the obvious and vital meanings of that theme in our lives. I'm not doing that because that ground-level reality of grief doesn't need to be addressed. In fact, there are times when nothing is more important than to be related to in our grief in that most basic, even most embodied of ways. To be held, to be fed, to be understood silently, to be spoken to with love. I'm not focusing on that crucial level of grief today because there's another aspect of grief which, in my experience, is seldom mentioned, but which I believe impacts all our griefs, and which, if deeply incorporated in our outlook, can enrich us not only in our losses, but in all our life. I'm referring to the grief which Jalaluddin Rumi has the reed flute describe in the first poetry selection we just heard. It's the grief that can cause us to weep without apparent cause, when we hear music with no connection we recognize to a sad memory or story, but which clearly strikes a chord. My paternal grandmother once related to me the story of her hearing Schubert's Ave Maria for what I assume was the first time. I wept, she said. She was a college-educated woman, but I doubt she understood the Latin text. And if she had, good Presbyterian that she was, the only tears would have been at what struck her as the sacrilege of it. Mother of God? Holy Mary, Mother of God? No. I think Catherine Clark Barrett was moved beyond understanding by the music. And so can we be moved. Rumi says that these tears are for a home, a connection, an identity which we've forgotten, and that the story is one of primordial loss. The flute made from a reed says, in effect, you were like me. I was cut from the reed bed, my original home, to make the musical instrument that I am. You too come from elsewhere to make music in this world. You, like me, suffer from a deep and ancient loss. You miss home. No wonder my lament makes you wail. It strikes the chord of your longing, brings to the fore a yearning typically forgotten, and almost inexpressible. You, like me, long for home. You too yearn to know and be who you most deeply are and always have been. Rumi places this Song of the Reed at the beginning of his masterwork, the Mesnevi, which is so imbued with the Quranic perspective that it is often called the Quran in the Persian tongue. Why? Why does he start with this, setting the tone for the whole work? Surely it is because this long, rambling opus, often structured by stories within stories within stories, is like a kaleidoscope, ringing changes on the message of these first few lines. You are not only more than you think you are, more than your successes and failures, more than the limits imposed by yourself or others or society, and more than what you know or dream has been suppressed by those limits. You, dear one, are rooted in the infinite and eternal, rooted in God. Pay attention. Remember. Wake up. So if we are asleep, if we are in a state of forgetfulness, what have we forgotten? To what do we need to awaken? In the Islamic spiritual and cultural world of Rumi, the Quran was and is understood to be a reminder. But of what? Our words and images are inadequate, but can point or gesture toward an answer. I've suggested home, where we come from, and God, our source. Home and source say a lot. I want to point to another, self. Home speaks to the question, where am I from? God or source speaks to, in whom or what do I originate? Self gets at, who am I? The other selection from Rumi we heard earlier is a call to the deepest reality of who we are. Come to the root of yourself. Again and again we hear it. As a refrain we hear it. Come to the root of yourself. And in case the invitation needs strengthening, we're enticed with one hint after another of what that self of ourself might be. You are a ruby embedded in granite, a guard at the treasury of holy light. You were born of a ray of God's majesty, a talisman protecting the treasure, but also the mine where the gems are found and from which they're dug. In the spiritual order which received its impetus from Rumi's life, this deepest reality, this original self, is often referred to as one's secret. A parallel image in Zen Buddhism is your face before you were born. The Judeo-Christian tradition sees the human as the bearer of the divine image. Yet if this is our secret, it is a strange one. We have it, and yet somehow we don't. It's a secret held in our depths, yet effectively a secret from us. Maybe you could say that awareness is the key to this conundrum. This is our deepest identity, but we're able to live our lives with little or no knowledge of it. It's who we are, but we don't identify with it. It may send up smoke signals, as it were, flares, hints, winks, but we easily lose track or forget. Perhaps our best guide to its presence is our yearning for something beyond anything we experience in this world, our instinct that there is more, and we are more, than what typically comes to us through our senses. And the yearning, the instinct that there's more, bring pain in their wake. It's a pain at what we've lost, and at its elusive, often seemingly unreachable nature. This pain, these tears, at being out of touch with our deepest, most original self is, I'm suggesting, our deepest, most original grief. It precedes and intensifies and finds echoes in all our other losses. This is the pain, the tears, the grief elicited by the song of the reed flute, or by other experiences combining beauty and sadness. To quote Rumi again, "You were born from the children of God's creation, but you have set your sights too low. How can you be happy? Come, return to the root of yourself." Or, as if we know our deep secret, but pretend we don't, "You are a ruby embedded in granite. How long will you pretend it isn't true? We can see it in your eyes. Come, return." Or, referring to what are often called the eyes of the heart, "Open your hidden eyes and come." It's as though the poet is saying that something in us knows, but we don't know that we know. So why have I chosen this particular focus on grief today? It does seem to take us far from loss and grief as we usually experience them. Why have I chosen this occasion to align myself with the one who calls us, saying, "Come, come, come to the root of yourself"? And that's clearly what I'm doing, not as another Rumi or spiritual adept of any sort, but as one who has heard the call and endeavors haltingly to answer and follow. Why this, and why now, during a grief-themed month? I suppose I have at least two motivations for choosing this focus. First, as I suggested earlier, I think it can help us understand and maybe assist us in bearing the depths of our grief. If the idea that we have lost touch with our deepest and most ancient self becomes part of our view of life, it can give context to our other losses, allowing us to hear in them echoes of this prior grief. I think such a perspective on our losses can, with time, help with our healing. I also believe strongly that any steps we take toward restoring our contact with our most essential self will give us a more solid stance with which to meet whatever life brings, losses included. Second, it seems to me that Rumi's description of what it is to be us, to be a human being, is truly amazing, and if taken in deeply, offers a basis for a very high and noble sense of ourselves and what we're capable of. A sense of our unique humanness far beyond what we usually call self-esteem. Hear me as I join Rumi in describing you. You are a ruby. You protect the treasure. In fact, you are the mine where the jewels are found. You are born from a ray of God's majesty. You are a treasury of holy light. Some of you have read Amor Towl's novel, A Gentleman in Moscow. If not, I recommend it highly. It's 1922, and Count Alexander Rostov, having escaped execution because he is remembered by some powerful people as a hero of pre-revolutionary days, has instead been sentenced to perpetual house arrest in the Grand Metropole Hotel right in the center of Moscow. He is soon befriended by a bright, inquisitive 9-year-old, Nina, who has managed to acquire a copy of the hotel's master key. Having already explored many of the Metropole's secret places, she proceeds to introduce the Count to its wonders. One night, they discover something new, even to Nina. Behind a bright blue door is a storage closet holding the hotel's dinner service for banquets. Included, of course, are various serving utensils, and now I quote, "Utensils, each of which had been designed with the greatest of care to serve a single culinary purpose." From among them, Nina picked up what looked like a delicate spade with a plunger and an ivory handle. Depressing the lever, Nina watched as the two opposing blades opened and shut. Then she looked at the Count in wonder. "An asparagus server," he explained. "Does a banquet really need an asparagus server? Does an orchestra need a bassoon?" Dear ones, take your pick or choose both. You may prefer Rumi's image and think of yourself, your secret, deepest self, as a ruby, a unique jewel to be discovered and excavated from inside the granite of the body and personality you so far know as you. On the other hand, perhaps one of the images from Toll's novel is more appealing to you. You are an asparagus server, designed for a unique purpose, but in this case, a purpose which you are still in the process of discovering. You are a bassoon, your inner ears still alert for melodies which resound in their full beauty only when spoken in your unique range and timbre. You are a ruby, an asparagus server, a bassoon, an unprecedented and not to be reproduced ray of holy light. What would it mean then to take seriously the call to return, to enter on a path of seeking our deepest reality? Or if this is a journey you already see yourself as engaged in, a better question might be, what would your next steps be? Of course, just as everyone's self is unique, so is each one's path. Still, I do have some suggestions. Pay attention to what gives you joy. Pay attention to what brings beauty into your life, what brings peace. Pay attention to what enlivens you and to love. Certainly, I mean love of a person or of another creature, yes, but also of anything that engages your heart. Crucially, whether it be joy, beauty, peace, enlivening, or love, let it be something that takes you deep, that takes you toward your core. Also, in line with where we started, pay attention to your tears, or to what would be tears if tears would come. Especially pay attention if your tears or sadness or longing or discontent seems to come out of nowhere, or if the intensity is more than you can explain. It may, of course, be about something this worldly, as it were, but stay open to the possibility that there's an element of yearning for going deeper even, for furthering your soul work. A hint about tears is to do the opposite of what's instinctive for most of us, that is, drying them up. Unless it's clearly inappropriate for the situation, or you're in a deep depression, or already drowning from a recent grief, I'd suggest you welcome, encourage, and even prolong your tears. Tears are our friends in the spiritual work. They're a form of melting of our frozenness, our stuckness in the familiar, a melting that can ease our movement along the path. Pay attention, wonder, follow what comes up, and imagine that the first or second answer is not the whole story. Pay attention, that is, and then start walking. There's a reason for the term spiritual path. It's a process. It's not over with the first hearing of the call, the first layer of the onion, the initial aha, or feeling of ecstasy, the first experience of thawing or melting. The process calls for practice, for some consistency in our effort. My own spiritual teacher, Refik Algan, quotes another teacher, Cahit Gözkan, as saying, everything depends on practice, even spirituality. Pay attention, then walk. Your spiritual path, your inner work, though always unique, and therefore having a dimension of aloneness, need not be lonely. Having a trusted friend or a group of friends is invaluable. You may find an identified path, for example, Christian, Buddhist, indigenous, Jewish, Muslim, as I did, and be able to share in common practices while exploring your individual form of that practice. It may be that a spiritual teacher to whom your heart responds may cross your path, as also happened for me. A therapist who is open to spiritual work or a trained spiritual director is sometimes just the support we need for moving ahead. In any case, companionship on the journey is important. My final suggestion has to do with forming a viewpoint, one that supports the kind of work we've been talking about. From my perspective, this would be a viewpoint that gives our minds some leeway to follow our hearts in these matters. You see, I think many of us have a positive heart response to Rumi or other similar spiritual voices, but our minds don't easily follow. It was much easier in Rumi's day than it is in ours to have a viewpoint that has space for the idea of our having come from elsewhere, with an origin in the infinite and eternal, and a self rooted in the divine. So I invite you to follow your heart, to let your heart take the lead, at least for a while, and let your mind listen and wonder and imagine. I invite you to be open to the possibility that the metaphors we've explored, metaphors of divine origin, of primordial home, of essential self, are not just sweet, appealing ideas we wish were true, but actually refer to the deep structure of reality. Listen, please, with your heartful mind as I say to you again, you are a ruby embedded in granite. How long will you pretend it's not true? I can see it in your eyes. And in fact, sometimes I can. When I'm more alert, paying better attention than usual, I can see it in your eyes. Can you see it? When you look at yourself in the mirror, in the eyes of the person sitting next to you in the pew or chatting with you as you leave today? Can you see it in mine? So may it be. Amen. Please rise in body or spirit and join in singing our closing hymn, number 100, I've Got Peace Like a River. I've got tears like the raindrops.
I've got tears like the raindrops
In my soul, I've got tears like the raindrops. I've got tears like the raindrops. I've got tears like the raindrops in my soul. I've got strength like a mountain. I've got strength like a mountain. In my soul, I've got strength like a mountain. I've got strength like a mountain. I've got strength like a mountain in my soul. Please remain standing and join in saying our unison benediction as Steve extinguishes the chalice. The words can be found in your order of service. May the love which overcomes all differences, which heals all wounds, which puts to flight all fears, which reconciles all who are separated, be in us and among us now and always. My friends, our losses in this life are very real, and we must grieve them. Yet from another point of view, that which is most precious is never lost. So go out in peace. Take with you any yearning for a forgotten self and any taste of finding it today in this place. Go out in peace and return again with great joy. Amen.